Hello and welcome to the first in our podcast series titled Future Leaders, How to Get to the Top. My name is Amy and I'm a director here at Ferguson Partners. In this series, we'll be talking to leaders in the real estate industry, discussing their career journey and asking them how they got to the top.
Hi everyone, my name is Priya and I'm a senior associate here at Ferguson Partners. For our first guest, we'd love to introduce Martin Samworth, who's a senior advisor here at Ferguson and also CEO of real estate AI and data platform RE5Q, amongst many other things which he'll be talking about. Martin will be discussing his career in the real estate industry, how he reached his position as CEO of CBRE's advisory services for EMEA, and his advice on leadership, including how the meaning of leadership has evolved over his career. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Priya. Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And to kick things off, it'd be great if we could start with a summary of your career, especially touching on your experience reaching CEO level at CBRE.
Yes, well, it was a start some time ago as a graduate, in fact, at a firm called St. Quintin. I then became an investment and development agent before becoming the head of the investment department within St. Quintin, and then within one of the sort of forerunners to CBRE, Insignia Richard Ellis. So I then took on a leadership role for CBRE and was responsible for the UK business for approximately 10 years as managing director. Then went on to be CEO for Europe, Middle East and Africa and the countries within that geography and that region, and then subsequently within APAC and EMEA for another 2 years after that, before going into a plural role and undertaking some of the roles that you've referred to already.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And, you know, having held a senior position of leadership in one of the most well-known commercial real estate companies in the world, did you always know that you wanted to be a senior leader? Was that something that was always on your plan?
Yes, I think it was something I always had an aspiration to, but it wasn't probably until I got into that specific leadership role running the investment team and then subsequently the UK business that I realised that actually I could probably make a contribution to the organisation in a more holistic and more valuable way in a leadership role rather than perhaps even doing what I was doing as an agent. There was a number of things that happened along the way that sort of validated that for me, and I realised that if I could hire other senior people into the organisation or undertake some M&A that perhaps other people might not be able to do, that would make a value contribution into the enterprise that would actually be greater than maybe just continuing to do some individual sort of transactional business. So it was that more holistic approach that really attracted me. And the fact I think I wanted to realised at that point I wanted to try and be an enterprise leader. And I was fortunate enough, and to some extent disciplined enough, I think, to try and go on a course each year to continue my own personal development. And I went to London Business School a couple of times. I went to Harvard 2 or 3 times and always learnt a lot from those experiences that helped me in that journey to trying to be an enterprise leader.
Absolutely. And you say there that you had that real gumption to go and do those courses and everything else. And they were obviously the active steps that you took to reach that executive management level. Was there anything else that you did? Was it your quest for knowledge, I suppose, that made you take those steps to go and do those courses, or were there other things around it?
No, I think I realised that as the industry had become more diverse, more sophisticated, and that leadership roles in larger organisations needed a greater range of skills, it was important to continue to evolve, whether that was from an understanding about accounts or understanding how to deal with HR issues, or whether to deal with how to develop and evolve a brand, or any of those constituent parts of that leadership role. They were all important, but they were all sort of specialist subjects. And in a way, I'd always felt that it was important to try and have at least the same level of knowledge as a business segment lead, as you might in your own leadership capacity, because in that way, if you understood what they were trying to deal with or what their they were trying to confront and what the opportunities that they might be facing and how you could help them better, you were going to be more equipped to do that if you had that understanding. It's not an easy thing to do in a diverse organisation, but when you've got all those central requirements, but then you've got those business segment requirements as well, it absorbs quite a lot of time, and it absorbs quite a lot of learning, or requires a lot of learning. But actually, I think that's how you make a wider contribution into the organisation.
Absolutely. And with that, and throughout your career, how have you seen characteristics for leadership evolve or change throughout that time? Were they different when you were becoming a leader, or do you think they're quite similar?
Some of the core characteristics, I would say, are the same. I do think it's important to be a people person. It's important to operate with the right levels of integrity. It's important to be seen around an organisation. It's important to communicate properly with people. But the real estate industry, I think, has become more sophisticated. It has become broader. It's still continuing to try and understand and evolve how it can embrace technology and change and evolution to a greater or lesser extent. Those things require different characteristics in leadership. So I do think it's been quite a significant evolution. And then we've got external factors that have come into play in the last sort of 5 or 10 years. There's a greater focus, for example, now on sustainability, quite understandably and quite rightly on D&I. All sorts of other things have come to the fore that really require additional attention. That also require different leadership disciplines and focus.
And how do you think someone gets on top of all those different aspects of leadership? How do you think is the best way for someone to start off if they're looking to go into something leadership related in their career to sort of harness all of those skills?
I think I've found that EQ, I'm a great believer in EQ. Emotional intelligence sort of manifests itself in many different ways. But it's really important in terms of understanding a situation and understanding how to get the best out of that situation. I think some of the soft skills are really important for a leader. I think spending time with people, engaging with people, and actually listening to them. And I would emphasize properly listening to them, not just paying lip service to it, is really important. I think if you're surrounded by good people have good ideas. And in a team environment, if everybody's contributing collectively, you're going to have a more successful and a more vibrant organisation at the end of the day. And they want managers and leaders that help demonstrate to them that they want them to succeed at the end of the day. At the end of a good manager and a good leader is all about leadership and helping people achieve more than they otherwise might do without their involvement. That's what leadership is.
And following on from that, Martin, we hear a lot, and you just touched on it, about how the attributes for leadership and CEOs especially have changed. The CEO is no longer that person locked away in the ivory tower, making the numbers work. Now there is a lot of focus on interpersonal and social skills, as you touched on. And also, just following on from what you said, I'd be interested to know if you had any mentors in your career, and how do you value that mentorship experience as well, and how did it make a difference to you?
Yeah, I've worked with many good leaders. I've worked with some not such good leaders. I think the thing that I've tried to take from both those experiences is the good things. So I've learned from both, in fact. And yeah, there's been many people that I've respected, that I've worked with along the way, where I've learned an awful lot. And some of those soft skills I referred to earlier, have been really important. One of the senior leaders that I worked with right at the outset, which was quite formative in some of my perspectives, I think, was just his ability to interact with people from all levels of an organisation, either whether that was internally or externally. And he had a great capability of making people feel special and valued. And that was true for not only his employees at the time, but also his clients. And that's really, really important, I think. That ability to interact at all those levels and to spend time with people and make them feel valued.
And in a mentorship relationship, what do you think are the main things that perhaps a mentee who's maybe more junior in their career should be asking or should be seeking to get out of a mentor-mentee relationship?
I think there's some holistic things and then some personal things from that point of view. So understanding, some of the things that they might need to consider to look at how they might achieve in their particular role, but also how they might evolve as an individual. One of the great things about the real estate industry is its sort of diversity. So, you can start in one segment of a business or one segment of the industry and move into a different part. And so there's a range of different opportunities for people within it, which I think is fantastic. So I think you need to look at what your own characteristics, your own aspirations ideally suit you towards in the industry. And then there's also the individual piece that the coach or the mentor can potentially help you with to achieve your personal objectives out of what you want from that career experience.
And sort of following on, as you were building out the CBRE advisory business, when you were hiring and interviewing and building teams, what were the main attributes that you were looking for in a person? What were the key standout points, maybe from the more junior levels or even the more senior levels, that you thought this would be a brilliant hire to make, whether that's for leadership or just generally a team player?
Yeah, it's a great question, Amy. A number of things probably spring to mind. I think at the outset, I think they have to be, and you have to satisfy yourself that that person is a subject matter expert, because they're being hired into a particular role with a particular responsibility, and you want to make sure, whether they're on the principal side or the advisory side, that at the end of the day, they understand the topic that they're involved with. So being a subject matter expert, I think, is really important. I think they also need to demonstrate a knowledge of the company that they're going to be working for, or the client that they're going to be serving, and what their objectives are as well. So that, again, they need to be able to express that, because again, that's how you start to be able to contribute value into an organization. I think they should be dedicated people. They should have high integrity in everything that they do, and so you want to feel confident that they're going to have those two aspirations in particular. Perhaps a softer one, energy and positivity. I've always thought you can do a huge amount with people with high energy, and the positivity piece, I think, in this is just, people like people that smile a lot. I know it sounds a silly thing, but what's the old adage? Smile and the world smiles with you, People like positive people, and I think they radiate and influence an organisation to the better. Maybe two others, team orientation. So I've mentioned some things before which are perhaps personal, but I do think they have to have a team orientation to them. So they should be we people and not I people. And I think lastly, I think they should be enterprise level thinkers and want to make a contribution and make a difference at an enterprise level, and see the opportunity that represents. So, thinking about the whole organization or the brand rather than just one small piece of it in what they do.
For people who are listening, who are maybe in the very early stages of their career, if you had to narrow it down, what would be your top 10 points for how they could best progress in the real estate industry?
Wow. I'll try and keep these sort of broad and generic, I think. But I remember actually, I was asked this question once before a long time ago, and because I always thought actually if someone had given me some insights into the answers to that very question, you'd like to think or hope that you could have progressed your career faster with that kind of guidance, or some of that sort of thinking. So if I couple that with my own journey and my own experience, I do think the first thing I would say is that discover and learn the industry. It's very broad, it's very varied. Second thing I think is you should throw yourself into the organisation that you've joined. be a part of that organisation, understand the people in that organisation, how it's organised, what it stands for, what it's trying to achieve. So make yourself a part of that organisation as quickly as you possibly can. Related to those two things, maybe the third thing is I would advocate reading all the sort of journals and the collateral that is around. It's very easy not to. The fourth thing I would say is to make industry contacts. So take the opportunity to meet people, have a coffee with them, have lunch with them. Take the opportunity to make personal contacts with people. Many of those will be enduring throughout your entire career. But take the opportunity to build your own network, your own contact base, your own customer base. Again, I think that will give you the chance to be more effective, but you'll also learn from it. So they're all having their own experiences. You can share those experiences as well. The fifth one I would say would be to be aware of your own brand, both within the organisation you work for and outside. So be conscious of, how you are seen, how you are building your own profile, what people recognise you for in the organisation. I think be very focused with your time. It's very common these days for people to find that they can get dragged into things that maybe, aren't a great use of their time. I sort of hate bureaucracy and politics with a passion, but I think making sure that your time is valuable. We only have so much of it. And it's important that you use it in the most valuable way that contributes to your colleagues, the enterprise, or the clients you serve. Know and love your clients or your stakeholders. I think you need to know them well. I remember I used to, when I was interviewing people as head of the investment department, I used to ask people, which clients they knew, how well they knew them and everything. And, you quite often get a robust answer. Well, I know this client really well. I speak to them once a month and, we have a really good relationship. I'm sorry, but I'd venture to suggest that if they're only speaking to them once a month, they don't actually know them very well at all. They should be speaking to them far more regularly than that, have a much closer relationship than that to really understand what they're doing and how they can help them. That's just not often enough, really. I think consciously seeking a way to make a difference. It's very easy if someone says, well, here's your role, here's your responsibility. Some people will turn up and they'll approach it on the basis they sort of turn the handle, if you see what I mean. I think it's also a good thing if people can be consciously seeking a way to make a difference, consciously seeking to make a value contribution to the organisation is a good thing. That doesn't just happen sometimes. Sometimes it needs a real focus and conscious effort. Something that I've always done and continue to do is to self-assess on a weekly basis. So I think at the end of a busy week, stand back and ask yourself in the context of the previous suggestion, well, what was that value contribution? What did I achieve this week, either personally or for the organisation or for my stakeholders? Did I actually achieve all the things I wanted to achieve? Don't wait for some 6-month review or annual review. Do it personally, objectively, on a weekly basis. And I think this is relevant for everyone, whether that's a junior person or for a leadership, but people in organisations generally. I think they need to be sensibly intolerant of mediocrity. So I think if everyone wants to work to a standard and achieve great things together, mediocrity is the enemy of that.
Fantastic. Those were great points. Thank you, Martin, and great food for thought for everyone, I'm sure. And just picking up on the networking point, from someone who is not a headhunter, unlike me and Amy, I wanted to get your thoughts on what you see as the value of networking with headhunters, because I think at the more junior level, perhaps it's not something that people tend to do. So I'd love to get your thoughts on how you see it as a valuable thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always worked with headhunters a lot because I think there's a very valuable interaction that can go on there and a very valuable contribution that headhunters can make into the growth and the betterment of an organisation. So you have eyes and ears and knowledge about what's going on in the industry at a whole range of levels and in a whole range of sort of spheres of it. So not embracing that, to me, has always seemed a bit short-sighted. So that's why one of the reasons I've always worked very closely with headhunters to look at how we could grow the strength of the bench of the organisation or the talent pool in the organisation. I think it's very valuable. And also from an individual's point of view, you know, if they are looking for a new career step, again, being in touch with the likes of yourselves helps them to identify some of those opportunities that might exist for them.
So thank you so much, Martin. That was really enlightening and great to hear your thoughts on how to get to the top in the real estate industry. I think most of our listeners, we're very familiar with CBRE's advisory business across the globe. So it's been fantastic to hear from one of the key driving forces behind that business.
Well, thank you both for asking me the questions. And I hope hopefully people will find it useful. I've certainly enjoyed my journey, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing now, and I'm sure I've got a lot still to learn. I know I've learned a lot in the last 2 years. The personal development experience sort of continues and should continue for everyone, I think. So thank you very much.